see if I can share my screen. New Twitter files dropped. So Matt Taibbi shared some Twitter files, and we're going to kind of go through them. And I'm probably going to go through some of the links that are attached so we can see like what's going on. Okay. So Twitter files extra. Big Brother is flagging you. I don't know if this is a big surprise to a lot of people out there, but the new House report and previously unpublished Twitter files show Stanford's election integrity partnership was a front for government censorship. I don't know if that's much of a surprise. I think a lot of people are on board with that. On Monday, Jim Jordan's Weaponization of Government Subcommittee released a damning report on the weaponization of disinformation. Packed with subpoena documents, it's focused on Stanford's election integrity partnership. So the weaponization of disinformation is something that happened during the 2020 election, right? We had a lot of people that were censored, largely conservative voices that were censored, deplatformed, however you want to say it, to in the name of disinformation and in the name of public safety. I'm going to bring up this link real quick. We will come back to this. Why is this asking me to sign into Adobe? I just want to look at the PDF, please. On Monday. Oh wait, we just heard that. The report showed that the EIP, which flagged 2020 election content, was a stand-in for the Department of Homeland Security. Again, not very surprising. The original Twitter files said as much. We just set up an election integrity partnership at the request of DHS and CISA, wrote Graham Brookie of Atlantic Council, an EIP partner. So it looks like we had a screenshot from an email. Understand, given the work DFR Lab does on geopolitics, technology, and election interference with GEC, we were just caught off guard because they just asked about it. I am not as concerned on the money or the project, but rather consolidating an approach to GEC as we get into the season for expanded renewals on 2 separate multi-year agreements in the 6-figure range that cover a significant amount of our work on elections and all of our work in South Africa and Latin America. On the DHS app, fake news, and other U.S. election-related work, it would be great to sync up as well. I know the council has a number of efforts on broad policy issues on the elections, but we just set up an election integrity partnership at the request of DHS and CISA and are in weekly comms to debrief on disinfo, etc. Early diagrams of the EIP workflow show central role of DHS's cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency, CISA, which would provide a warm introduction to election and special interest communities. The intelligence community is also depicted as a participant. Sorry. Let's have a look here. This is like their flow chart, essentially. Intelligence community feeds them. The CISA independently may triage briefings to IC. Whoop. CISA can option for communication through CISA end users, election officials, special interest groups, and this can feed into the CISA provides a warm introduction to election and special interest communities. So this CISA feeds into the EMP, the Election Misinformation Partnership through Stanford. And they leverage existing relationships to notify platforms of findings. So the platforms then dish out this information to the public. So a lot of stuff brought in from the intelligence community is filtered through many other things before it ever reaches you. It's at least going through 2, sometimes more. And this being the platforms of Facebook, Twitter, and all that. Let's go back. Oh, I didn't even show that. I feel really bad. But I was basically looking at this diagram here. The EIP was a fig leaf for DHS and CISA. Sorry, that EIP was a fig leaf for DHS and CISA was never a mystery. Stanford's Alex Stamos said it was formed because CISA lacked both kind of the funding and the legal authorizations for its necessary work. Oh, there's a video to go along with it. I love it.
There was a lack of capability around election disinformation. This is not because CISA didn't care about disinformation, but at the time they lacked both kind of the funding and the legal authorizations to go do the kinds of work that would be necessary to truly understand how election disinformation was operating. So because of the feedback and the ideas from this group, we were able to pull together pretty quickly a project between these 4 different institutions to try to fill the gap of the things that the government could not do themselves.
So independent companies acting on behalf of the government to filter disinformation, whatever that may be, that they define this. So that, again, one of the problems and why they're bringing this stuff out, and Twitter being one of the platforms they used to push this information out. When Schellenberger and I testified, and I being Matt Taibbi, when Schellenberger and Taibbi testified about the EIP before the Weaponization of Government Committee in March, outraged members denied the operation was secret or engaged in censorship. So they're denying that they were doing this, and they wrote one, CISA did not found, fund, or otherwise control the EIP. Share this with you real quick. False impression. So they're claiming this is false. The EIP operated as a government cutout, funneling censorship requests from federal agencies to platforms. This impression is built around falsely framing the following facts. The founders of the EIP consulted with the government and Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure, that's CISA, office prior to our launch. CISA was a partner of the EIP, and the EIP altered social media platforms to content EIP researchers and analysts found to be in violation of the platform's stated policies. These are all true claims, and in fact, we reported them ourselves in the EIP's March 2021 final report. But the false impression relies on the omission of other key facts. CISA did not found, fund, or otherwise control the EIP. CISA did not send content to the EIP to analyze, and the EIP did not flag consent to the social media platform on behalf of CISA. Let's go back to the thread. The denials triggered a long, self-pitying media campaign depicting congressional subpoenas and freedom of information requests as tools of harassment and describing reports of government-private censorship consortium as false statements and conspiracy theory. This is the big problem I have with all this. The media itself used to actually do journalism, right? They used to investigate these things. It is their job to hear something and go out and report on it and find out all the information. It's literally their job. And rather than trying to get to the actual bottom of something, they create these self-pitying campaigns where they claim, oh, we're being harassed, and saying it's all false information. Wrong. Disinformation researchers fret about fallout from judge's order. These academic studies, falsehoods spread by Trump. Now the GOP wants answers. Everybody, the media should want answers. The politicians should not be going out for answers. They can make claims, but the actual job of journalists and in the news is to report on objectively on what's going on. But instead, we get headlines like Jim Jordan's conspiratorial quest for power. Maybe there's a story in there, but of Jim Jordan trying to, funnel power to himself through this. But I mean, the bigger question is the government, are certain parts of the government using private companies to spread their own disinformation through omission? Stanford's Renee DeResta to the New Yorker. Matt Taibbi says something on the Twitter thread, and members of Congress get to read my emails. In fact, Congress read her emails because voters chose to give members who wanted them subpoena power. That and FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. Just reading off. Sorry, he's just looking at that. Sorry, I'm going to get off of here. New Twitter files confirm the Weaponization Committee's assertions that the EIP was a DHS operation from the start. That's Department of Homeland Security. Department of Homeland Security want to establish a centralized portal for reporting disinformation, wrote Twitter attorney Stacia Cardiel in early 2020. So she writes, DHS wants to establish a centralized portal for reporting disinformation or other issues on platforms so that election officials only have one place to go to report. They reached out for a meeting. I told them we would be in listen only mode and would have to take any suggestions, recommendations back for consideration. I suggested the first week in May to meet. I will let you know once we hear back. I don't think anyone has to join the meeting, but I want you to know about this development. In May 2020, Twitter's Lisa Roman wrote, CISA received a grant to build a web portal for state and local election officials to report incidents of election-related misinformation, adding, this tool has been built in beta form. So let me just go back here. So in May, they're meeting, first week of May, they're meeting. And, in that same month, CISA received a grant to do this. So this happened real quick. The key takeaways, CISA received a grant to build a web portal for state and local officials to report incidents of election-related misinformation. This tool has been in beta form. The committee report noted Twitter was briefed on the portal by DHS in May 2020. In June, Twitter executives added, we have already done a demo with DHS and CISA, and Twitter has already received a demo on this product. So they were supposed to meet to talk about it in May, and Twitter had already, in June, had said they've already done a demo with the Department of Homeland Security and CISA on this. It's big. So companies are in the Department of Homeland Security working secretly, essentially, with Twitter to create portals in order to report misinformation, disinformation. The problem with this is it's biased. That's the big problem with it. The EIP has asserted it filled a critical gap reviewing domestic political content, which would likely be excluded from the law enforcement action under the First Amendment and not appropriate for study by intelligence agencies restricted inside the United States. Excuse me. Among the first damning committee revelations, notes from a DiResta presentation on the EIP saying the gap is filled had several components involving unclear legal authorities, including very real First Amendment questions. Because it's absolutely a violation of your First Amendment rights when branches of government are trying to restrict your speech. And it's not directly the Homeland Security kicking in your door and arresting you and throwing you in. It's still a restriction of your speech because you're on a public platform, which is arguably public utility at this point, and telling and silencing you and saying you cannot say these things. If you say this, you will be deplatformed. That's the big problem. Worse, the committee produced notes from a call between Facebook and DHS officials showing the EIP created a platform for receiving complaints overseen by the quasi-private center, the Internet Security, the quasi-private Center for Internet Security, because DHS cannot openly endorse the portal. Right. The TLDR, U.S. public policy, PNG outreach, and security policy met with DHS, the Center for Internet Security, and NAST about a misinformation reporting portal that CIS is developing for state and local level elections officials to report mis/disinformation and IO-type activity concerning election interference to the platforms, with a focus on Facebook, Twitter, and Google, the three biggest places that people find information. Following the beta test, this will do in Florida, Colorado, North Carolina, and Rhode Island in early June. They would like to do a demo for Facebook. So at this point, they'd already done one with Twitter. So this is a bit misleading. Wait, did I read that wrong? The following test we'll do in Florida, Rhode Island in early June. Okay, and they would like to do a demo with Facebook. Internally, Facebook would prefer our independent reporting channel, which makes us an industry leader and was reported as successful by all parties on this call and is monitored 24/7. We are aware that if the majority group moves forward a centralized channel, there are PR challenges for not participating. The highlights are the DHS cannot openly endorse the portal, but has behind the scenes signaled that it has told them it would be easier for many states to have one reporting channel, and CISA and its ISAC would like to have incoming the same time that the platforms do. CISA is in discussions with Twitter to gauge their interest, and it was unclear what engagement has been with Google, which again is misleading because they just said that they've already done a demo with them. CISA is talking with Graphica, which has said it's interested in nationwide trends that the reporting portal may reveal. Instead, it was agreed a behind-the-scenes system would be implemented, which the private CIS would technically be the face of the program, but CIS and CISA would receive incoming content at the same time. In other words, the convoluted bureaucracy of the EIP was designed to conceal the central role of CISA by making the non-governmental CIS, which this year received $42.9 million. And they're showing the top 5 Center for Internet Security. Let me see here. Shows amount given Department of Homeland Security, $42.9 million. This fit with Twitter Files documents where EIP flags came with a disclaimer saying complaints were already forwarded to CISA, which will submit to relevant platforms for review and to the Election Integrity Partnership of Stanford University. Again, the big issue here is just it's really highlighting how much effort was put into working with these companies behind the scenes in order to monitor what was being said. You cannot say this. We are not allowing this because it is mis or disinformation. EIP members complained that FOIAs and subpoenas were unnecessary because our work is public and EIP was no secret cabal, but the EIP didn't release individual recommendations on content until threatened with contempt. That's another big. So there's like a little to no transparency when it comes to this stuff. Even though there is no secret cabal, it took them to be subpoenaed before they were helpful at all. When EIP finally produced the JIRA tickets showing the recommendations on the flagged content, it wasn't hard to see why they were anxious to produce them. Many were phrased as direct requests for removal. We've seen this before. The original Twitter file showed a lot of, we want this removed. We recommend Twitter removes the tweet as it is fairly clear violation. We recommend to Twitter that the tweets be removed. We recommend the following tweets as misleading. Many posts recommended for action were clearly protected speech, like an ad claiming "Do Nothing Democrats want to hijack Republic votes," or joke tweet by Mike Huckabee about voting on behalf of deceased parents. And a lot of this could be, in combination with like AI. I don't even doubt that to some degree they were using AI systems to find these things. Mike Huckabee's high enough profile where they might just see it and flag it, but I wouldn't doubt that a lot of these were in combination and working with AI. Exhibits from Missouri versus Biden case show the Atlantic Council worrying to former CISA official Matt Masterson that CIS may not be effective for the USG because it came to see EIP as a growth area and consistent funding source. Masterson replied, "I have been pounding on them for 2 months not to guerrilla their way into more. But these documents show, I can't even read this morning. These documents should put to rest the notion that the EIP was not a government homeland security operation. The idea that it's conspiracy theory to worry about the First Amendment concerns with the EIP would also seem belied by DeResta herself conceding it." Let's take a look at, is this both? Oh, it's just one. In her notes on the fall 2021 presentation on the annual CISA summit, Renee DeResta, the research manager at the SIO, wrote as part of her presentation script that the gap the EIP was intended to fill had several components, one of which was unclear legal authorities, including very real First Amendment questions. And then let me go back. Oh, this is another, sorry, we're looking at the same thing. For more, read Big Brother is flagging you at, and the new documents reveal U.S. Department of Homeland Security conspiracy to violate First Amendment and interference. Let's take a look at that. Good to see everyone this morning. Hope you're doing well. Dun dun dun. I mean, again, this is a lot of this stuff people have known. It's very, very much something that we've been combating for a while. The Twitter files have really brought to light some of the stuff that's been going on at Twitter prior to Elon Musk taking over. Government officials and government agencies working with people at Twitter and other social platforms to curb information on Twitter, on X, on the platform formerly known as Twitter. So I'm not all that surprised. I think now they're the X files. Yeah, exactly. I'm not surprised at the continued information coming out about the Department of Homeland Security working with these government these social platforms. And the problem is it's these platforms influence what people say. Like when information is pushed to you at a certain rate, we continue to consume information that we like, obviously, but if there's no way that information is put out there, there's no way we can take it in. And Facebook, Google, Twitter are three of the biggest platforms that people get information from. YouTube being the other one. YouTube and Google, that's where people find most of their information. Twitter is another one. Like I said, it's basically public utility at this point. And when you start having government agencies regulating what information you get through them, that becomes the First Amendment violations that people should be worried about. You should absolutely be worried when government officials are deciding what you can and cannot hear. This is a huge, huge deal. And I appreciate Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger continuing to do their work with the Twitter and X files. I think it's important. And people, this again, things that you got to be aware of. What can you do to combat it? I think one of the things that you can absolutely do is follow voices that you don't agree with, first of all. There's a lot of progressives on Twitter that I follow, and I'll look at what they're talking about. Watch videos of someone that you don't agree with working through something from the progressive side or the libertarian side or the alt-right side or whatever. Having a well-curated social feed, I think, is important, so you get multiple angles. And not only that, but I think you need to be more entrenched in your local community. That might sound like a cope, but I think it's something that people need more than anything. So you can hear what's going on around the world, but also understand how that may or may not relate to what you're dealing with at home, in your local community. Because most people, I think, are just they're hurting their mental health while not realizing that they don't even need to put any effort into it. Doesn't mean you can't have an opinion on it. It means that take it in and filter it through, put it through the right filter, not the I care about all of this filter. So yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up and just read out that Twitter file for you, because I don't know if many people saw that new Twitter file dropped. The Twitter files extra by Matt Taibbi.